Okay, and it is 7 o'clock, so I will call this Board of Education meeting to order and ask that John Mansfield bring up our flag so we can all join in the Pledge of Allegiance. Tina, I just saw your hand up. Are we good?
Selena Bell also does not have the link.
Okay, so I'm going to have John Mansfield work on that. And I think we have a quorum, so we will, let me just 2, 3, 4, 5. So we will begin as they log in. Okay, so if you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice
for all.
Pledge allegiance to the nation.
Okay, so I realize that we have 2 board members looking to join, but in the meantime, I will do a quick roll call in my new spot for just a bit. Jonathan Steckler.
Here.
Ken Soberg.
Here.
Rachel Ruggieri. Here. Elizabeth Flogel. I see her icon, so we'll come back in just a minute. Tom Collin.
Here.
Amy Casey. Not yet. Tina Mayorta.
Here.
Sean McAvoy.
Here.
Selena Bell. Okay, I'll go back. Liz Flogel. Well, I see her there, so I'm going to assume she's on and is having some difficulty unmuting. John Mansfield, are we bringing Amy and Selena on?
I did just resend them. I did reach out to Selena because she just emailed me and told her I resent it. So they should be here shortly.
Okay, so everyone knows how well I do with wait time. So here's the awkward. We're going to give it a minute or 2 and see if our folks can join on. We have 2 new board members, so the process is new. Hopefully there's nothing funky with the email. Looks like maybe. I think Liz Flogel is getting on another way.
I think they could use the public link and then be promoted, correct?
That is correct. I can fill it out for them if they'd like, and it should just send it to them automatically.
Thanks, John. Thanks, John.
Susie, can you hear me now?
Liz, I can hear you now.
Awesome, I'm here. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Thanks, Liz. Well, we knew you were there. We just figured it was, you were having a hard time with the mute.
John,
Thank you.
I'm going to in private message you Amy Bell's cell number, Amy Casey's cell number, and then you can just send it to her. Or Jonathan, or you can just let her know how to log on. She's struggling.
Okay.
Hi, Amy. You're on mute, Amy. Amy, I think you're on mute if you're trying to talk.
No, I was talking to John about logging on. He just hung up with me and he's off to help Selena get in.
Okay, I think Dr. DeSantis and John are trying to connect with Selena. Hopefully we can get that. Hello, Amy.
I see Selena in as an attendee at this point. We can promote her from there.
Okay, John Mansfield, can you promote Selena? Oh, there we go. I think we see her. Okay, that was a little challenging, but we'll be better for next time for sure. Welcome, Selena. Welcome, Amy.
Hi.
Hi, just to catch you up, we called the meeting to order. We had the Pledge of Allegiance, and we are now in the next phase of the agenda. And so what I did was I called roll call, and I was missing you, Selena, and you, Amy, but I have you now. And so we have the entire board here. I think there's no one, nope, there isn't anyone missing. All right, so the next order of business is the election of officers. If you haven't noticed, I'm reading from a script, so I only do this once a year, and I want to make sure I do it right. So the next business, the order of business is the election of officers. We have a board policy 9120. It states that the officer of the board will be elected by open vote at the second regular Board of Education meeting in November. The election will be by majority vote, so that's tonight. I would like to open up the floor for nominations for the position of chair of the Board of Education. Tina?
So I just say,
Yes,
well, okay.
I think.
I'd like to nominate Jonathan Steckler for chair. I think our children, we as parents, community have been through some unprecedented, uncharted times. In this magic world of time, magic I use because sometimes it's linear, sometimes it's too fast. We forget that our superintendent is almost new, not been long. We have a brand new administration, and we have 3 new board members this year. So I think it seems fitting that we put our faith in Jonathan to ensure the same continuity of leadership, collaboration, and representation. I will like to add very quickly, as we start our term as a new board, I would really like to highlight and remind everyone, including us all board members and parents and community watching us, that please be kind. We are parents first, we are neighbors, we are community members, and we need to be respectful at all times of each other, no matter how opposing or how similar our opinions are. So just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. Okay, we have the nomination of Jonathan Steckler. Do we have any other nominations for the position of chair? Sean?
I'd like to nominate Tina Malhotra for chair. She has a bipartisan slant to everything she does. She has the support of our parent community and has spent years working with our PTA community, our parent community on all of our children's issues. Has a good pulse on what's going on, and has a great way of working with just about everybody from every political slant and every different facet of our community.
Thank you, Sean. Do we have any other nominations for position of chair?
This is Liz, Susie. I'll just second the nomination to Tina Malhotra, given her widespread community support and the number of letters we received to the Board of Ed address from nonpartisan and bipartisan people in the community, and her storied history of supporting our PTAs and our students across every perspective. And it's wonderful to see a woman be nominated and a person of color to be nominated as the only one representing our community and our changing demographics. So I second that nomination.
Thank you, Tina. Thank you, Liz. Do we have any other nominations for the position of chair? Okay, having received these nominations, I am closing the floor for the nominations to a vote. Just a reminder that this will be an open vote and that the election is by majority vote. Board members will vote by hand. So all of those in favor of Jonathan Steckler for the position of chair, please raise your hand. Okay, I see Rachel, Tina, Ken, Selena, Tom, be patient with me, Amy, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Did I miss anyone? Okay. Okay, by majority vote, Jonathan Steckler is the chair of the Board of Education. Congratulations, Jonathan. So I would ask you to come over to the chair seat that I'm fictitiously in, but since you can't move and neither can I, congratulations again. And I think now you'll lead the election of vice chair and secretary positions, Jonathan. Congratulations.
Thank you. And thank you, Dr. De Silva. Moving on, do I have any nominations for vice chair? Ken.
I would like to nominate Tina for the position of vice chair. And just to avoid repeating everything that Sean and Liz said, those are the exact reasons why I think she would be able to bring her experience to bear in that role.
Thank you, Ken. Tina, do you accept the nomination? Are there any other nominations for vice chair?
I'd like to second Tina.
Great. Thanks, Amy. If there are no other nominations, all those in favor of Tina Malhotra as vice chair of the Board of Education, please raise your hands.
I cannot raise my hand, but I am raising my hand. This is Liz Vogel.
I see your verbal hand. Thank you, Liz. Liz, Sean, Tom, Selena, Amy, Ken, Rachel, myself. Did I miss anyone? Looks like 8 votes. Tina, you're abstaining? 8 votes for Tina. Tina, congratulations. Welcome to being the vice chair. Moving along to the next order of business, do I have any nominations for the secretary of the Board of Education? Ken again.
I would very, very much like Rachel to stay in the role of secretary. I think she has done a fantastic job. I think her outreach to parents and constituents who write into the Board of Education are as complete as they can be, given the restrictions that are put on her as speaking for the entire board. I appreciate the responses she gives. And she's done a bang up job of trying to juggle public comment in this COVID world. And hopefully very soon we'll be back in person and that will be a non-issue.
Thank you, Ken. Rachel, do you accept the nomination?
I do.
Great, thank you. Are there other nominations for secretary of the Board of Education? If not, by show of hands, and Liz by voice, all those in favor of Rachel for Board of Education secretary?
Jonathan, just to be clear, I am not voting for Rachel. My
Okay,
hand is down.
got it. Sean, your hand is down. I see Tom, Selena, Tina, Amy, Ken, and myself. That's 6. And Rachel, you're abstaining as well? So that's 6 votes for Rachel to maintain the secretary position. And that congratulations, Rachel, or condolences, whichever one it is. You are secretary. Thank you all. Okay, we can move on now to the regular order of business for a Board of Education meeting. Start with the chairman's report. First off, I'd like to welcome 3 brand new members to the Board of Education, Selena, Amy, and Tom. Welcome aboard. We all look forward to working with you collaboratively. Tina, welcome back to the Board of Education. I know you were on a 2-week hiatus there, but it's nice to have you back at the table. I look forward to working with all of you together. Speaking just personally for a couple of seconds and by way of reflection, I do recognize that as chair, I did not receive a full endorsement by this Board of Education, that there are some members of the board that are frankly not happy with me as chair, and I understand and do take that to heart. I did read the emails from members of the public who requested another board chair, and I take those to heart. I do try to let everyone have their voice at the right time and at the right moment at the board. And I intend to do a better job of doing that going forward. Instead of relying on people to reach out to me, I will do a better job of reaching outward to other members of the board to solicit the feedback that they'd like to provide. Secondly, at this time, I think it'd be ideal to read over some of the Board of Education rules of engagement. These aren't really gone over very frequently. These were adopted back in October of 2014. I'm just going to briefly read them. I think we can all look at them again in early January during our retreat. But these are the current Board of Education rules of engagement. These will be interesting for both members that have been longstanding as well as brand new members. Number 1, we will remain attentive during board meetings, encourage participation by all members, and avoid dominating a discussion. Number 2, we will prioritize and filter requests for information from staff so that they relate to the work of the board. Number 3, we will respect the different roles of the board and the superintendent and staff and concentrate on governance and policy, referring problems to the superintendent to solve. Number 4, we will strive to represent common interests rather than factions. We will make decisions that are best for Ridgefield students and the district as a whole. Number 5, we will refrain from getting involved in operational issues. Number 6, we will put aside our personal agendas and or recuse ourselves when we are unable to do so. And lastly, number 7, we will maintain a climate of safety, trust, and respect, not attack fellow board members or staff, not aim for gotcha or public embarrassment, and focus on issues and substantive discussion and debate. Again, that's the current rules of engagement for the board, and we can revisit those in January during our retreat. That's all for me tonight. I will turn it over to Dr. De Silva for the superintendent's report.
All right, so thanks again, Jonathan, and congratulations, I'll say to all three of you, Tina, Jonathan, and Rachel. I realized, Jonathan, I actually never asked you if you wanted to accept the nomination, but the fact that you're actually still speaking presents good news for me, because otherwise I guess I'd be in trouble, but hopefully that's a yes. Again, welcome to our 3 new board members, and welcome back, Tina, from your short hiatus, as Jonathan described. And to all of our more seasoned board members, it really has been a pleasure working alongside of all of you. And I know how much time each of you give to the district, whether it's at these Board of Education meetings or the committee meetings, or quite frankly, attending the many, many events that we have in the Ridgefield Public Schools. And please know that it really does not go unnoticed, not from the administration, but also from the faculty and families. So for those that are seasoned and have been with us a little bit longer, we notice and we appreciate all the time and effort on everyone's behalf. So thank you for that. Just a few short updates. We had, since the last time we met, we had some great celebrations for our veterans that were really student-led and school-focused. It was just a heartwarming experience to be a part of our schools and really having our kids acknowledge how much benefit we have from those that are out there fighting for our freedom. So wonderful events. For those of you that were able to be a part of them, I'm sure you share with me the great sincere of gratitude that we have for our veterans. And it was so nice seeing them actually in person. We had some great events. The VPA, Visual Performing Arts Department, ended their show this past weekend with All in the Timing by David Ives. Congratulations to all of those students and performers. The robotics team, hard at work a couple of weekends ago. They left me a t-shirt here in my office. So congratulations to them and for their hard work. They were part of Dr. DeSantis's podcast a couple of weeks ago, which was nice to highlight another group. We did receive hot off the press tonight an update on CIAC winter sports. I think for the athletes engaged in winter sports, you'll be happy to hear some of the news. And I won't jump too far ahead because we actually haven't met on, obviously by our steering committee to dissect it a little bit, but families can expect in the next week and a half or so an update on what that means for their children. But it does look like full steam ahead and with a full schedule for winter sports. So that's good news. Screen and Stay has been implemented in our school since the last time we met. Our kids are benefiting from that and from the opportunity of being able to come back to school. Those that are listening know that that's been a great challenge for us, having to quarantine a significant amount of kids, in particular at the elementary level. So that's good news. Dr. DeSantis is hosting an up and coming workshop on December 16th. So because he's on the line, I'll give him a little plug there. Instructional Technology, a Parent Survival Guide that is available live streamed through YouTube, and we will be sure to send out additional reminders. I think we updated families this past Friday in the newsletter as well. Besides that, I just want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. Again, on behalf of the administration, we feel very fortunate each and every day to serve the children here and work alongside our highly engaged families and a great Board of Education. So for all of you, happy, peaceful Thanksgiving. And hopefully it's in the company of family and friends and incredibly healthy. And that is it for me, Jonathan.
Thank you, Dr. De Silva. Moving on to committee chairs. I know we did have a policy committee meeting last week, but we do not have the policy committee chair with us this evening. Is there another member of the policy committee that can bring us up to speed on that meeting? Ken, you were there, correct?
No, I was there. I was there for sure. And we're going to have our first reads for 3 policies tonight that we got through. There's the student privacy, which is a new policy, as well as homeschooling and meeting conduct, which would bylaw 9325, and that encompasses public comment. So we'll be discussing those on our first read later in the agenda.
Thank you. Are there any other liaison reports for this evening? Sean.
Donovan.
Then
We had a Ridgefield Prevention Council meeting last week, and we have an anti-vaping middle school poster contest that wraps up in a week or so. $500 prize for first prize, $200 for second and third runner-up. So get your posters in. Information on the RidgefieldPreventionCouncil.com website. And December is Mental Health and Anxiety Month. So look for some more stuff there. And there will be people at the holiday stroll on December 3rd and 4th.
Thank you, Sean. Ken, coming back?
Yeah, there was also a budget and finance committee meeting, and where we discussed the October year-to-date financials, as well as the transfers over the summer through October.
And those are coming to us tonight.
Those are coming to us tonight, yes.
Great.
I see Dawn already looking at her.
Terrific. Any other liaison reports for this evening? Okay, over the next couple of weeks, I will be reaching out to all the board members individually to discuss what committees and liaison roles they most like to see themselves on for the next year. So again, I'll do that individually with each of you over the next couple of weeks before the next meeting. Moving on, approval of the October 25th, 2021 minutes. Do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education approve the minutes of October 25th, 2021.
Thank you, Rachel. Do I have a second? Ken, thank you. Any comment or adjustments to be made? No. All those in favor of approving the minutes for October 25th?
Jonathan,
Yeah.
okay, you might want to repeat that. I think you sounded underwater for most.
Can you hear me now? Okay, all those are there any comments or adjustments to be made to the October 25th minutes? If not, and I know Selena, Tom, and Amy, you were not at this meeting, so you'll be abstaining for this, but all those members present who are in favor of approving the minutes from October 25th, please raise your hands.
My hand is up, Jonathan. This is Liz.
Thanks, Liz. That's 6. Okay, that motion passes. Thank you all. And we can move on to the first discussion item of the night, new high school course proposals.
Okay, so I have a team here, Corey, Steve, Danny, and a few others, our high school reps, and our Dr. Greenwood and Mr. Pepe. They're here to share out, which is always an exciting time, 2 of the new courses that we're proposing for the upcoming year. So I'll kick it off right to Corey, so I'm sure she's going to kick it off to the team.
Absolutely.
So maybe Corey, we won't keep doing this. I'll just kick it off to you for the next.
Okay, I got it from here.
3 items, okay? We'll
Okay,
save
we
time.
have a couple items tonight. But first, I want to welcome to our screen tonight, Steve Anton, who's the project Lead the Way lead teacher. We also have Danny Martins with us, who's the social studies department chair. We have Dr. Annie Tucci, who's the 612 humanities supervisor. And of course, Dr. Greenwood and Mr. Pepe is here. So the first portion of our presentation tonight is going to be about new course proposals. So John, if you can put up the slides for us. Next slide, please. So to give some context for tonight, we just wanted to set up with a quick conversation about why we would make changes to courses or to resources, which you're going to hear about tonight. So of course, you know that standards can change. There are times when we come up with courses or want to revise courses to better meet the vision of the graduate. There are opportunities as our departments, especially this year and last spring, work together collaboratively to make some vertical or horizontal adjustments. We always want to be up to date. We always want our students to be engaged. You'll hear about that tonight when Steve talks. We want to make sure that we are fulfilling any of the changing graduation requirements. And in some of the changes that have been made for high school graduation, there is an opportunity for some innovation. We also want to fill in any gaps that we feel like are missing as we look through the pathways through our different departments. We want to diversify our offerings as we lay them out and look at the different options that students have. And always we want to think about increasing student access. Next slide, please. So one of the really fun parts of being on a new team is that we all have been able to go back through the processes and systems and structures that existed before and make sure that we have clarity and focus on how all those processes work. So the first thing you're going to hear about tonight is a new course proposal. And so what we did, and we meaning the curriculum department with 612 supervisors and Dr. Greenwood, and then with the department chairs, is we went back over the process for a new course proposal. And we really delineated what happens at which time of the year, who's involved, and then what the different submission and proposal components look like. We want to make sure that in the early stages, we have lots of courses coming to us. So we've changed the process to make sure it can be very short and summary. And then when a proposal is selected, it moves into the process that you see now and saw in your board packet, which is much more broken down and split apart to be presented to you. And then, of course, you can see that the third part of a new course proposal process is what happens after it's approved, which is still some additional work. So I'm going to turn it over here to Dr. Greenwood, who's going to set up for us the new course that we're bringing to you tonight. And before he starts, I do want to also note that as a team, when we were looking through all our different proposals and thinking about next year, that we did really want to be thoughtful about how many courses we were bringing through. And for this year, we're going small, but it doesn't mean that it's not very important and that this course doesn't meet all of the indicators that we talked about before. Here you go, Jake. Next
All right,
slide, please.
Yep, thank you. All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the new board members. Looking forward to working with you. We have 2 courses that we're proposing tonight. They're really a replacement for 1 course, though. So what we brought forward tonight is 2 half-year courses called Electrical Engineering 1 and 2 to replace our digital electronics course. So this is a replacement. So we're taking 1 course out and asking to bring 2 half-year courses in. The reason that we're doing this is, something that's really important to us is keeping our pathways open for our students, lots and lots of different ways for them to access as much of the curriculum as possible. And fitting that within the confines of our graduation requirements, which Corey was just speaking about. So I have Steve Anton here with me. He's one of my senior teachers and also teaches the engineering courses. And I also have Jarrett Pepe here. He does the scheduling at RHS. And so Steve's going to really make the new courses come to light, give us some rationale, some background. And then I have Jarrett here to help us if we have any questions about the impact that might bring. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Steve.
Hello, everybody. So for those that don't know me, I'm Steve Anton. As they said, I'm the teacher leader for Project Lead the Way and math, computer science teacher at the high school as well. I'm very excited about the electrical engineering semester-based courses that we're
Next slide,
proposing
please.
today.
Thank you.
And
Next slide.
actually, you could jump right to the next slide from there. Thank you. So as Dr. Greenwood was mentioning, there's really 2 primary goals with introducing these semester courses as opposed to the full year course that we currently have. And that's really just expanding student access to these courses and realigning this course within our broader scope of our curriculum between our pathways for all of our career and technical education courses. For the past few years, our digital electronics has not had the number of students enrolled to run, so we haven't been running that course. And we're trying to bring up these new courses so that we could get that back going and get more tech options for our students. The lack of enrollment has just been that students have been interested but have had trouble fitting that course into their schedule. The full year course can be a little restrictive, and it's typically seen as the 3rd year of the engineering course, which really limits when it can be taken. With the shift to this new model, we're going to be changing that. So with these semester-based courses, we're going to be altering who can take this course and when it can be taken, so that students are going to have more flexibility to fit these semester courses into their schedule throughout more years at RHS. And they'll be able to take it starting even earlier. So we're going to open it up to sophomores, juniors, and seniors, as opposed to digital electronics, which was only juniors and seniors. And we're going to give them the option of taking just a semester at a time, so that if it conflicts with other courses, they can kind of take it throughout and be a little more flexible with their schedule. The other aspect of this is aligning it to more of all of our courses. As of right now, there's quite a bit of overlap between the digital electronics curriculum and curriculum for our other tech courses. Some of our other tech courses that we offer with our product design and our robotics courses and our principles of engineering course. So this gives us the opportunity to kind of recreate our curriculum to provide our students with more of an opportunity to just learn more focused content and less repetitive content as they go through the different pathways of our engineering and tech department. So they don't have to have as much repeated content, so we could kind of create the course with our own curriculum so that it could align well with our other courses that we offer. And as we've seen with our product design and our robotics, the semester-based courses tend to work really well for students to be able to kind of mix them into their schedule whenever they can, and to be able to kind of have more opportunity to take them throughout their time at RHS. If we could jump to the next slide, please. The first course, Electrical Engineering 1, will be the first semester. It's going to cover analog electronics and the beginnings of digital electronics. So with analog electronics, Students are going to be doing a lot of soldering, and their big culminating project is a soldering project where they create a random number generator, kind of an electronic dice situation. And then they get into digital electronics for the rest of it, which really starts to get to logic gates and the binary number system and all of the inner workings of all those digital electronics. And then they end the year there with kind of being able to manipulate kind of a digital scoreboard to do different projects that they have. The course is really focused on just being a hands-on experience where students get to really just have a lot of different projects that could expand their knowledge and introduce them to kind of real world applications of these topics. If we could jump to the next slide, please. The second semester would kind of continue from there with digital electronics, but going into sequential logic and actually introducing memory. That's kind of going to be the jump into the second semester course as opposed to the first is going to be with digital electronics. You're going to implement the memory, and then it finishes up with microprocessors, working with Arduino, which kind of feeds as a introduction to robotics, which creates a nice link to our robotics courses that we offer. So if students take our electrical engineering courses, they'll have a little bit of background and then be able to go and work with the VEX robotic system that we have there. Again, students are going to have a little more flexibility in their projects in electrical engineering too, but they're going to be focused on, again, that digital electronics piece and then the microprocessors. If we could jump to the next slide, please. Thank you. Students that qualify for this course, again, one of the primary goals was to open it up and expand so that more students can qualify and take this course. So we will be opening it up to sophomores, juniors, and seniors for Electrical Engineering 1. And there's no requirement of taking any other courses before this. So even if students haven't taken any of the other tech and engineering courses, they could jump right into Electrical Engineering 1 and use that as kind of their gate into the CTE field. Electrical Engineering 2 will have the prerequisite that you'll have completed Electrical Engineering 1 before that. So that will be opening in the second semester next year per our plan after the students have gone through Electrical Engineering 1 in the fall semester. We don't anticipate any impact on FTEs. And so really the only cost involved in transitioning to this course would be the curriculum writing to transition to our own semester-based curriculum. And I believe that's it.
Thanks, Steve. Listen, I just want to make sure I say this. I really appreciate you keeping an eye on these pre-engineering courses for our kids and making them more accessible to them, because you can tell the content is definitely of interest and we know we have a need here. And so bringing it down to a younger group of kids, splitting it into two pieces so they can fit it in somewhere over 3 years, we definitely think it's going to have a positive impact on our student body. So I appreciate you doing that. And at this time, before we move to the next piece, which is on new books, does anybody have any questions about the two new courses we're proposing as a replacement for one quote unquote older course? I kind of can't see everyone on my screen, so I'm not sure. Susie, can you see everyone? I'm on my laptop. I'm sorry.
I do see Ken with a question.
Okay, Ken?
Is that $1,600 per course or $800 per course, $1,600 total? Excuse me.
Steve, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. That is total. That's $800 per course for $1,600 total.
Are there questions or Sean?
Not so much a question as an observation. Love to see EE classes in our high school. As the father of two engineering daughters, anything that brings more STEM into our schools is better than less. And electrical engineering and mechanical engineering are kind of the root of all engineering. So it's great to see this in our curriculum.
Thank you.
I agree, Sean. Anyone else, or can we move on? Okay, move forward.
Do you want me to keep going, Corey and Susie? Or do you want to reintroduce each? Do you have to introduce each piece? I'm sorry, I'm not really sure.
Because they're separate agenda items, Jonathan. Do you want Do you want to introduce B?
Got it. Okay, so the next item is request for new social studies curriculum resource.
Yeah, we wanted to distinguish that these three items are different on the agenda. So that's the reason we have it this way. So I apologize for the choppy nature, but it was purposeful. Go ahead, Dr. Greenwood.
Okay.
First, I'm going to say, Mr. Anton, thanks for being here. Now you can go home. So just want to make sure he knows he doesn't have to stay on any longer.
Thank you so much. Thank
Thanks
you.
for being here, Steve.
Thank you so much.
Have a good rest of your evening.
And then John, do you mind putting the slideshow back up on the slide that introduces the new resources?
There we go.
Perfect. Great. That's perfect. So we have two textbooks that we're bringing to you for adoption tonight. They're both coming in the social studies department and they're both AP textbooks. I'm actually not going to talk too much about them because I have Annie Tucci with me, our 612 humanities chair, and Danny Martins, who is my social studies department leader. And so together, they're going to present these two new resources. I know you have the full packet inside your board packet and probably have taken a look at it already. They're just going to bring these textbooks to light for you, and then we'll answer some questions after. So I think you can switch, John, and then Danny or Annie can take over.
Thanks, Jake. So hi, everyone. So Danny Martins is here because he really dove deep into these texts. So he'll be speaking to share information with us regarding the request for these new initial textbook purchases. I just want to reference that Board of Ed packet that it does have details about each of the texts. And in the past, I know that we would pass samples of textbooks around, but given the nature that we're online, in the Board of Ed packets, there are sample links so that you can be able to see portions of the text for your own review. So Danny, please take it away.
Good evening, everyone. I appreciate the invite. So I just wanted to bring to you two resources that kind of started and stemmed with the College Board revamping both of these courses.
Danny, your service went up. Oh, Danny, you're talking, but we can't hear you.
He's practicing.
He's practicing. Dr. Tucci, do you want to maybe take it over? Oh, I think he's seeing.
Danny, your sound went out.
Oh, sorry.
There you go.
You're back.
Yep. Excellent. Sorry about that. Love the internet. You pay for money and it still doesn't work as well.
We
So
heard no, you'll just have to start over. We didn't hear anything.
No worries. I'll start one more time. So I wanted to bring to you two resources. The purpose of bringing these resources is that both these courses were revamped in 2018 and 2019 from the College Board. And since then, they have also completed a course exam description that is most recent in 2020. So our current textbooks do not align with the actual textbooks or with this new college exam description. So let me start talking about
It's at that very moment that we lose Mr. Martins. Yeah, we lost you again, Mr. Martins. Dr. Tucci, do you want to take it from here?
Sure. So we have the first textbook is AP Human Geography. Danny, if your sound comes back in, you can feel free to interrupt me as you know more details about this. So our first course is AP Human Geography. And the text comes from National Geographic, which is an exceptional resource for this particular course because we have experts in the fields of geography who have published these texts. And it fully aligns to the new curriculum. So there are course exam practice questions for students, the alignment to the order for how the course functions is all within the text. So it's easy for our students to access. And then for the AP US Government and Politics course, this
and
text,
Annie, I can try if you want me to.
You're back, go ahead.
So this text is from BFW Publishers. Our current edition is from Pearson. And unfortunately, we have 3 teachers teaching the course with 3 different versions of the textbook, which does not align for their purpose of aligning the course. So it makes it very difficult. This is the most recent and the first actual
This is the most recent edition of, so these texts here, sorry, Danny, that you keep cutting out. So this text here is aligned to the full course. And the students would be able to also have access to course exam practice as well. And one of the most important features of why we need this initial textbook purchase is because of having 3 separate editions at the moment, and using a source that's better aligned. So Danny, I'm sure that I missed something in your details, but I hoped to capture that as you got cut out again.
Yes, I certainly apologize. I will leave it as that, and I'll take questions if people need to ask.
Do we have questions from the board members? Anyone?
Thanks, Danny.
Thank you.
Sorry about
We would have
that.
had a lot of questions, but you kept cutting out, so.
I learned everything I said from Danny.
Danny put together a really nice presentation. I swear to God, I feel bad. Maybe we'll have him tape.
Sorry, Danny.
like on first try, it was perfect how he said everything.
I know.
So
Well, good job, Danny. I
he
promise
did
it
a
was
great job.
everyone.
Maybe Danny, is Danny at Ken's house?
Yes,
Okay.
that's it, Danny, that's usually my problem.
Yeah.
I'm feeling your pain.
Should we move on to the next item, Dr. De Silva?
Yes, please.
The discussion item number C, state mandated course offering.
So Ms. Gillette, I know you want to set this one up before you do turn it over to Dr. Tucci.
Absolutely. John, can you put up the orange slideshow, please? Thank you. So a few minutes ago, when I spoke about the process that we go through when we're selecting a course, and then we heard from Steve Anton, we wanted to delineate here because this is a course that did not go through that process in Ridgefield Public Schools. This is a course that went through a different process through the State Department of Education. So this is a course that was, and Annie will speak way better about all the details, but this is a course that was created by the state of Connecticut, and it is a required offering. It's an elective course. It is going to be offered starting this fall. Some schools in our DERG and other schools around the state did pilot it this year. But this is a course that went through a whole different process again, and that's why it's separated. So Annie is going to take it away from here and take you through all the different elements so you can understand what this course entails. Thank you. Next slide.
Thank you, Corey. So good evening, everyone. So this presentation is going to be an overview of the course for African American, Black, Latino, and Puerto Rican studies. So as Corey mentioned, this course presentation is separate from other course proposals because it's just a bit different in the nature of the processes for board approval. So I do have my notes in front of me on a separate screen. So I just want to make sure that I don't forget anything. So excuse me if it looks like I'm looking off camera at times. I just want to make sure that I don't forget something. Okay, so this presentation is going to review the current legislation related to boards of ed offering this one-year elective, an overview of the structure of the curriculum, and any needs that we may have for implementation. Next slide, please. Okay. So the Public Act 19-12 that was passed by the General Assembly, and it was signed into law by Governor Lamont back in 2019. It states that by the year of 22-23 school year, boards are required to offer this one-year optional elective as parts of their course of study. In preparation for this, the State Education Resource Center has provided a curriculum and a resource guide to support this implementation. As part of the curriculum development, they did facilitate a process through which 150 member advisory groups that included K-12 teachers, college educators, historians, museum representatives, parents, students, community advocates, to get feedback on the curriculum and build it. So I'm going to get into a few details here just on the purpose, and then I'll go into a little bit more detail on the overview and structure and the units of study. So this, the purpose of this course is it's an elective course for 11th and 12th graders, and it offers students this opportunity to dive deeper into the rich histories, contribution, and progress of African American, Black, Latino, and Puerto Rican cultures. It is intended for after or simultaneously as students are engaged in a modern world or US history survey type course. Our modern world and our US history course, those are our graduation required courses. So this is an elective, which typically electives mean that you kind of go deeper into your interest areas. Because those courses are foundational in the knowledge and skills required for this course, that's why it's placed, that it doesn't have prerequisites, but the purposeful grade level requirement falls naturally in the progression of studies for students if they choose to take this course. Now, we are pleased to report that upon review of the curriculum, that it aligns really well to our RPS vision of a graduate, specifically the elements of being knowledgeable and communicative learners, as this course aligns to those goals. As we all know, part of our mission at RHS is to produce empathetic global citizens. So if students should decide to enroll in this course, it will certainly help foster and grow our students to do just that. Next slide, please, John. So for course overview, this is a general overview that I have from the curriculum. So I'm going to read it to you. So the African American, Black, Puerto Rican, and Latino course of studies is a 1-credit year-long optional elective in which students will consider the scope of African American, Black, and Puerto Rican, Latino contributions to US history, society, economy, and culture. It utilizes Connecticut's social studies framework themes and inquiry-based approach already familiar to social studies teachers to deliver a rich content and personalized learning experience. So to add on to that for my own review and our work here at RPS, the way that it's broken down, the first semester has an African American and Black history focus. And then the second semester has a focus on the Puerto Rican and Latino histories. The design of the course utilizes the voices of these histories to engage students in the inquiry process, and it is aligned to the C3 standards. These standards require that students are able to apply the concepts and tools of the social studies disciplines, which are history, civics, economics, and geography. This course specifically is deep in history. The second is to evaluate sources and use those evidence to support claims. And then ultimately, we want our students to be able to communicate their understandings and findings. Next slide, please. So you'll see here that the units of study are organized semester 1 and semester 2, and they're organized in chronological order and are era or theme based. Highlighting this is typical for how history courses are organized and are similar to our modern world and US history courses. And those are foundational, to any elective in a social studies. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is a slide that's going to look familiar to Steve Anton's presentation because we still have to add the course, right? So we have to think about implementation. So again, who can take the course? Our 11th and 12th grader students can take this as an optional elective. The resources needed regarding FTEs, they remain the same. It will have no impact. For supplies, for this year, it's 0. There are open resources that are built in with the curriculum, And there is a book bundle that is a recommendation, and the whole book bundle would cost approximately $2,000 for teacher use and student use. But we'll determine those needs after we hear, feedback from pilots, our own curriculum review, enrollment. So because I've went through all of the resources, I don't anticipate an immediate need for the recommended resources at this time. So anticipated curriculum hours. So the course is written and the curriculum is written. However, we do need time to review that curriculum with the teachers, and we need to make sure that it aligns to the Ridgefield High School scheduling and pacing. So it is requested for 20 hours and would be the cost of $800 as a request in the 22-23 budget. Now for teacher preparation, part of any history, social studies, training, and course offerings, our teachers are well prepared to teach this course. However, there is also free professional development throughout the year that's a support to our teachers provided by the Connecticut State Department of Ed and the State Education Resource Center. So, and lastly, as I mentioned before, that this elective supports the vision of the graduate and our RHS mission. So before I take any questions or comments, I just want to make sure that you know that while this course is required to be offered in your Board of Ed packet, there is still a full, complete course document that is for your reference. So there's further details should you need any. Next slide, please. Questions?
Thank you, Annie.
Thank you. Are there questions from the board members? Sean?
Yeah, again, not a question, more of a statement. This is just for edification, the first time that our state has developed and mandated curriculum for a local district, and I really think that's objectionable. Whether the course is proper and correct or not, whether it fits within our vision of a graduate is irrelevant. We've got the state dictating and writing curriculum for the first time ever. I think that's awful. So that's all I've got.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you, Sean.
Sean, one of the greatest challenges I think that here at RPS has seen is that it is a full year course. And I think for some students who are excited about the content, they very well may elect to take it. I think for some students, that is the greater challenge. And at this point, the State Department was not open to the idea of splitting it. So, and making it a half-year course. So I think that is one of the real variables. Or perhaps one of the real barriers for kids to take a course that may actually be interesting because it is full year. And I think the depth of the units based on what the team has described are, there's a lot to it. And so, where we land, we're not quite sure yet, but you're right in that it is one of the first times that at least that I can remember that the State Department of Ed has mandated a course and also written a curriculum. Some districts that did pilot it have spoken positively about the course, but that's a reality for sure.
Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, I had a question about Sean's observation. Putting aside the procedural objection that you referenced about the state doing this, do you have some substantive objection to the course itself?
Is that to Annie?
Yeah, I was just going to say,
No,
Tom,
that was
is that
was
to me or Sean? Because the law.
To Sean, I apologize.
Sure.
I have no other clarity beyond it's a state mandate, and I disagree with the state mandate. And I think that these decisions, should be made local and curriculum should be developed local. That's it, period, full stop.
Understood, thank you.
Sean. Any other questions about the course? Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Tucci, for the presentation.
Thank you, Annie.
You're welcome.
Great.
Thank you.
Next item up, action item D, RPS class of 22 graduation date. Do I have a motion?
Did Rachel?
That the Board of Education approve Friday, June 17th, 2022 as the date of the Richfield High School class of 2022's commencement exercises.
Great, thank you for that. Do I have a second? And then we'll go into discussion. Can you second? Okay.
All right,
You
so I'm going to set the stage for anyone who was at graduation last year. You probably know that I think everyone that works at RHS and certainly RPS believes that graduation belongs at high school. It was an amazing commencement, and as soon as I hopped off that stage, I ran over to Dr. Greenwood, and he knew exactly what I was thinking, and I believe that I know that he felt the same. That said, we actually do have some disappointing news for you all tonight, and hopefully you'll understand why the decision that we've made is the decision that we've made. We came to committee and we discussed all the great benefits that we had last year, all the positives, the strengths, perhaps some of the things that we would have changed if we continue to have commencement at RHS. And then we acknowledged some of the real challenges that are facing us. And so currently, just to give you a sense, and Dr. Greenwood's here tonight and he could give you a greater perspective than I can. But one of the most significant variables, quite frankly, is cost. And that cost is an ongoing cost. We've actually thought very deeply about, is there a way that, yes, we're going to incur a cost and perhaps one year it's bigger, but then we're taking care of for the remainder of our years. But there just really isn't the case, at least until perhaps enrollment changes. And so ultimately we have about 400 graduating seniors. And as you know, parking is challenging. That's one variable. And so we recognize that we'll have to do some satellite parking spaces, which we would be comfortable with, but that's a reality. Second to that is inclement weather. So at this point, in the event that we had inclement weather, we really don't have a secondary space to put our students. So our auditorium fits about 800 kids, which would mean that we'd probably be able to have our kids, our staff, and possibly one parent, two for some, which probably wouldn't work. So the reality is we don't have a secondary space. We thought about every space in this community in Ridgefield to have as a satellite space, and we just couldn't find one in the event of inclement weather. The cost this past year was about $37,000. The cost to have the ceremony at WestCon is about $19,000. Those of you that have gone over to see a football game, you realize that we have a new turf. And in order to have the turf stay within warranty, we would actually have to cover the turf, have particular seats, and cover the turf, which would actually be another $11,000. So it's 37 plus an additional 11 to cover the turf so that we wouldn't be impacting the warranty. So at the end of the day, the reality is we came to the conclusion that primarily due to the cost, and secondarily, where would we go if we had inclement weather? We ended up back at WestCon. And I know those folks that were here before us probably problem solved in the same way that we problem solved and realized that there just isn't an option unless our enrollment decreases and or our auditorium changes and we have an alternative space. So at this point, we have a date, June 17th, and with some disappointment, we are recommending that we have the commencement ceremonies at WestCon. Dr. Greenwood, what did I miss?
Nothing. You hit the big points. I think, just for the good of the order, you and I and Ms. Stewart and Ms. Hopkinson went around and around and around. We spent a lot of time on this. And at the end of the day, I think that, Dr. Silva and I just said, we need to make a decision with our heads and not with our hearts. Our hearts are definitely on campus, but our heads understand that we just can't do it this year. And so that's why we're asking for support to continue to have it at WestCon and keep planning for other days.
And just, I'm sure some of you are thinking probably the same things that I was thinking. Well, let's just buy a stage. Let's buy 1,400 chairs. And then where do you store them? And where do you put them? And, then it's just, the list kept growing in terms of that. And at the end of the day, I think, Jake, you said it best, is our hearts for sure. And I think all of those kids would prefer to have their commencement at their high school. It means so much to them. It's very sentimental. I know all of you that were there. Certainly the board members were there last year. It meant something different. It was great to be a part of it. I had 2 ceremonies at RHS, one during COVID, which was virtual, but it was still fun. I mean, kids were in their cars. It wasn't exactly the same, but it was nice to be on campus. And then last year, before the new turf went in, and we couldn't actually have it at WestCon last year because we, at that point, they weren't actually able to give us a guarantee that they would give us the space during COVID. So that's why we ended up at the high school. But the circumstances are different now. And at this point, we need to set a graduation date. So it seems like that's where we have to land.
Questions from board members? Or observations from board members? I know I for one thoroughly enjoyed having it at the high school last year, but I understand why this decision is being made. Sean?
Yeah, same here. I watched it from the cheap seats when my kid walked the stage, and there was nothing like having it at the high school. I wish we could do that again, and I get it, but it's disappointing.
Anyone else? Tom?
Yeah, I would echo Sean. As I said to the leadership when I saw them this morning, I was there.
Tom, we lost your service also. Is there something going on tonight? Oh.
We can't hear you, Tom.
But
oh.
Did you lose me?
We lost you at
You're back.
last year.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'll be short and sweet. What Dr. De Silva did last year at that graduation was incredible. I loved it. But you all have thought long and hard about this, and I respect your judgment on what the right thing to do is.
Thanks, Tom. Tina?
Yeah, finally. Sorry, I've been distracted the whole evening, but I agree. I was there at the event. I think it was amazing. I know every parent who was there echoes it. I think as board members who were part of that, we echo it. But I understand there are limitations, and I support, at the end, you guys know best. So I support this. And thank you for going, thoughtfully putting this together. Hopefully one day it will be back at RHS, but till then we will work with whatever is the best for all our kids and parents. So thank you.
So, Tina. Any other questions or comments? Okay, there is a motion on the table. All those in favor of the motion to approve Friday, June 17th, 22 as the Ridgefield High School Class of 22's commencement exercises, please raise your hands. That's 8. That's unanimous. I think Ms. Flugel has left at this point. So that carries with 8 votes. Thank you. And we can move on to discussion item E, mobile vaccination unit for the 5 to 11-year-olds. Who's going to take this one out?
I'm going to start and just provide a little bit of context of why this is on the agenda and perhaps why it's different than our 12s and up. So first of all, the purpose of why this is on the agenda, we have the ability, we've spoken to Ed Briggs, and we have the ability to coordinate with a mobile vaccination clinic for our 5 to 11s. You might remember when it was our 12s and up, we did not offer any type of clinic here in district. The reason we didn't do that is at that time, you might remember there were mass clinics available, like at Danbury Hospital, for example, Lord and Taylor parking lot. So there was a lot of opportunity for children, students, or individuals ages 12 and up. This for this population of kids, the 5s and 11, we really don't have a full understanding of actually what the need is. So we have the opportunity to, number one, get a sense from our community if they're able to get appointments with their pediatrician, if they want them, right? This is really a parent decision. But if parents want, if they are able to access appointments with your pediatrician, or if they're struggling to find an access point. If we determine that we do see that there is enough families that would like an opportunity locally to have their vaccination for their 5 to 11s, and Aaron's here and can give you the details about what that might feel like in terms of the experience. Griffin Hospital does have a mobile unit that is available to Ridgefield families. Again, it's limited to the children between the ages of 5 and 11. They have a mobile unit that's available to Ridgefield families as early as November 30th for the first dose. We are not interested in having this happen during the school day. That's not something that we're interested in doing. So it would be available to families after 4 o'clock. East Ridge School would be one of the access points. So they would, just like, you know, the facility use with any other organization, they would go through that process, or we would go through that process to support them to have the vaccination clinic. Again, it would be after school. Our staff would not be involved outside of Aaron, who said he'd be willing to be there, especially because it's our population of kids. They naturally would need to come at least a second time to provide the second dose to children. Families would be bringing their kids. It's up to them. We would be certainly reaching out to families to see what the level of interest is, because Griffin would need to determine how many hours their staff would be here. And again, Aaron could share more. But I think what's really important, because I know that this is a decision that may be difficult for some families or wherever they are in the decision-making process, this is up to them. It's available outside of the school day. It happens to be that we would have a access point for them to the mobile clinic to come to. It would be inside our facility, a cafeteria more than likely. And Aaron can talk to you a little bit about the window. And again, our staff really would not be involved other than having Aaron there, because it is our kids and just being a support and extra support. And he's willing to do so. So I'll turn it over to Aaron. Aaron, I'm not sure if I missed anything. I hope not, but.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Dr. De Silva described everything perfectly. The Department of Public Health has partnered with Griffin Hospital to facilitate mobile vaccination clinics at school districts across the state. We've tentatively scheduled them for November 30th from 4 to 7 p.m. at East Ridge Middle School if the Board of Education would like to move forward with this. It's voluntary for families who would like to bring their children to receive their first or second dose. A follow-up clinic will be held, if the Board of Education would like, on the 21st of December, where the second dose could be administered. Second doses could be given at the first or the second clinic, depending on where families receive their first dose, not during the school day, held in the cafeteria. And it's a turnkey situation where the mobile vaccine clinic comes, they set up, they prefer to be indoors rather than outdoors for lots of different reasons. And we just help provide a place for families where they can choose to vaccinate their children if they would like to do so. So if anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them.
Thank you. Sean, I see your hand first.
First of all, no objection to having, after school hours, parent-sponsored voluntary vaccination clinic. Can you speak to what happened with the Farmanville email? There was an email that went out to parents saying there was going to be a clinic tomorrow and before this meeting.
Yeah,
that's more than concerning. What happened?
So I can speak to that, Sean, is that the nurses were made aware that this was a possibility for us to have. Again, in the earliest, I think, was November 30th. We weren't firmed up on dates or even times, quite frankly, because we don't know at this point how many students or how many families are interested in this. So we plan after tonight to send a survey out to families to see where we are. We could have 10 families, 15 families, or 100 families. We really don't know at this point. But what I think one of our staff members was anxious to let families know. And so they skipped a few steps. And for that reason, when I actually do see all the communications that were sent out, I asked our principal to let families know that it was sent out prematurely and that the discussion would be happening this evening.
Okay. And second question, are we aware and are we, how are we handling Griffin's class action lawsuit from earlier this year where they were accused of reusing insulin pens on multiple people? It's kind of concerning for me.
So I'm not aware of that, Sean. That wouldn't be something that we would have necessarily known. We'll take that into consideration also, if that's something that we should be taking into consideration. I mean, this is a partnership that is offered through the State Department of Public Health. And so, we'd like to be able to offer to families who want this accessibility really, or if they're having a hard time getting into their pediatrician. But at the end of the day, these are really family decisions. And so we just want to make it easier for families if it's a need. It very well may not be.
I get it, but 3,100 patients were affected by this class action and exposed to HIV, Hep B, and Hep C, and that's concerning. I think we need to understand what checks they've put into place since then and make sure that that can't happen again.
I think that's a valid concern, and I'm looking forward to learning more about that specific situation that occurred. I'll certainly connect with Ed Briggs about that. I know he's been in touch with the DPH about this particular clinic and possibility of it happening. So that's something I'll refer to Ed, Mr. Briggs.
Thanks, Aaron. Tina.
I just want to add one piece that I may have forgotten to say. Just be reminded that families attend with their children. Parents attend with their children. This is not something that our staff, we know how children respond to needles. I can only speak for my own children. Some will come and be just fine. Some will not. Some will say that they're going to be just fine and then they disappear. Some will need to be held down by 7 people. As much as we love our kids, we don't want to be engaged in that process. So families will, just like if they were to go to their pediatrician, we wouldn't really be engaged in that.
Thank you. Tina and then Tom.
Okay, so I do not know what Sean said. Thank you. I don't research. So thank you, Sean, for bringing that up. And thank you, Aaron, for acknowledging and that we're going to research about that more. There's a valid concern. I think parents who are listening will bring that up. I think I'm just going to thank you, Susie. You mentioned that it's a parent choice. I think that's so important because there's so much confusion around this. This is a parent-driven choice. We don't have anything to do with it. It's driven by parents. Medical professionals are doing it. It's almost similar to the flu clinics we've had. Am I right, Aaron? We've had flu clinics in partnership, right, with RVNA at our schools. So parents bring their kids, parents are part of this process. We have medical personnel delivering the vaccinations. Teachers are not involved. RPS is not involved. I think that is something we need to ensure is very crystal clear to parents, because that's the bottom line. Vaccination, needles, everything, healthcare is driven by parents. It should be parents controlling it. I'm glad we're providing the facility. We're providing the support to them if they so need. And I do like that we're asking them if they need it. So I welcome parent participation driving this conversation because it can go either way. So I'm glad we're providing that for anyone who may choose that to so sorry, I'm tired. It's just so choose that, but I'm glad we're doing that, and it's after school hours, and it's similar to a flu clinic, which we have. I know there is past precedence for that. We have done so. Just wanted to.
Tina, just to add, so we will send out a survey to get a sense of where folks are at some point. Like I said, they can come as early as November 30th. It may be tabled for a little bit, depending upon how quickly we get results or if we don't get enough families to respond. But we at least wanted to put it out there that this is an option for this community. And really at the end of the day, that's all we want to do is to let folks know that we're here to help wherever you land.
Thanks, Tina. Tom, you're up, and then Selena next.
Yeah, my only question is what, if any, possible premises liability concerns might there be, or is this going to fall into some sort of municipal immunity? That's my question.
Tom, we can ask that question. Typically when folks rent our facilities, they do have to come in with insurance. This is a little bit different. So, we would have to follow up with that question. It's a good one, though. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Selena, you had your hand up?
Sorry. Yes, I just wanted to say I'm happy that the administration is organizing this convenience, and that's really what it is. It's just a convenience for parents to who might want to vaccinate their kids. So I really appreciate it, and I've actually heard from some parents.
It's one of those moments that I'm beginning to think it's
Lost yet, heard from parents.
Yeah.
I think you're back.
Okay. I wanted to say I appreciate it that you're giving.
And you're gone again.
To be fair, I just suspect it's the Zoom platform tonight because it's it's too unusual that so many people from so many different locations are having an issue. So please don't reflect on, it's likely not you.
I think it's the wind. Anyway, just thank you and I'm saying thank you for some parents too, who have contacted me to tell me thank you for the convenience, especially for working parents. It's just easy to have it at the school, just like when we used to have the blood drives at Scotland. So.
Right. Dr. DeSilva, there was an email. Liz is not able to be here at this time tonight. She did have some questions in an email. Are any of those able to be answered at this time?
So let me just pull up, I think many of them we did answer, but perhaps not all. So let me just pull that up quickly because I know Ms. Flogel, she had, Jonathan, you want me to read her comments?
Sure.
And, she brings up some good points. So one of them is, have we spoken to the businesses in Ridgefield that currently provide vaccines on the revenue loss from potential sales as folks walk in to receive the vaccine, for example, Bissell, Rite Aid, Walgreens, et cetera? We have not, but that's something that we certainly, and I don't know for sure what the availability is in those places. So there may be plenty of availability. And I don't know what losses would be like. So that's certainly a consideration. Ms. Vogel also mentions that over 92% of those 12 and up in Ridgefield have already received the first dose, and 92.9% of the 12 and up have completed the vaccine. Why is this necessary? So the answer to that is we don't know yet. So it really is just getting a sense of the families that perhaps are having a hard time getting an appointment or feel more comfortable, being close to home, to have the vaccination done. It very well may be that it's not a large enough group to make it work. But, ultimately, like I said, tonight, our goal is to ask. And the Griffin Hospital was available, like I said, as early as the 30th of November. It is clear that everyone in Ridgefield that wants a vaccine can easily get one done. Why do our schools need to be involved? It's the second part of that question. There is a significant peer risk for those children with needle phobia or fear, forcing them to be in a high stress situation among their peers when there's no perceived community need. As we said earlier, this is going to be something that happens after school. They may still see some of their peers though. That might actually still be a variable. It just will happen after school. If a student suffers adverse events in the school, what are the plans of action? Do we need to ensure EMTs are on site? As I mentioned, this is going to happen after school and there'll be clinicians available. We are 18 months behind in learning. Are the clinics going to be taken out of the academic day? If so, this is not appropriate use of our school hours. It's not going to happen during the day. As I mentioned earlier, that was something that we felt very strongly about, is that we really did not want additional time away from instruction for the purpose of vaccinations. Not to say that we don't value them, it's just to say that we really need the time in school. And knowing that facilities offer outside of school hours, we felt that it was important not to take time away from the school day. And the positivity rate in Ridgefield is at 1%. It was even less for the testing in the schools. As such, the level of urgency does not warrant additional clinics for vaccines. that is readily and easily available throughout our towns and areas. That was the last comment on that.
Thank you.
So I'm hopeful that we got to most of that. I don't know that we missed anything. Some of it, like I said, doesn't apply because it is after school hours.
Right. Thanks. Amy, I see your hand.
Just wanted to say that I appreciate that it would be happening outside of school hours. I appreciate that we will be getting parent feedback on whether or not it is in high demand here in Ridgefield. And I'm wondering, would it be open for children from surrounding towns as well? Or is it just limited to Ridgefield public school students?
Well, we would have to be helping facilitate the registration process, Amy. So therefore it would really be limited to Ridgefield Public Schools. I do know that Ridgefield Academy, if we were to have a clinic, they expressed some interest there. So we would probably help them as well. And again, I think that, it really is going to have to just be how many kids, how many families are interested, and is this really helpful so much so that we should have the clinic. But it likely would not be open to anyone else, not to suggest that we don't want them to come have it done, but again, it's just, we're helping with the registration process. So no.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you for that update. Moving on to the meat of the night, the 5-year capital projects.
All right, Joe.
All
Joe
right.
has been hard at work, and I think you'll notice that there's a little bit of a difference in the way in some of the projects that we've highlighted as a priority for this year, and hopefully some of the pieces that we've been discussing in the past couple of weeks make sense in terms of how they're connected. Joe, you have a presentation, and I know John is ready for you.
Okay, John. All right, you can advance to the next. There we go. So good evening, everybody, and a special welcome to our new board members. First, a little background for our new board members. Each November, the Facilities Department is charged with the development of a 5-year outlook for capital projects. Typically, these are projects that carry a cost of $50,000 or greater, and they usually have a useful life cycle span of 5 to 10 years or more. So once it's approved, hopefully by the Board of Ed, the 5-year plan moves forward to the Board of Selectmen and then on to the Board of Finance to become part of the May budget referendum. So for tonight, I will walk you through the projects identified and prioritized for the upcoming 22-23 school year. For tonight's presentation, there'll be 3 departments, facilities, curriculum, and technology. We'll all speak to the details that make up our respective project requests. So in your packet that you received is the complete 5-year plan. It also contains the project details and the supporting documents for the project development cost structures. So let's get going here. So for the 22-23 school year, I've identified 12 individual projects, which are classified in 6 project categories. And this is something that we've done in recent years. We've bundled the projects together under identifying headers. So for the 22-23 school year, these 12 projects totaling a little over $2.3 million. So the first project, which is under environmental and code compliancy, is the removal of and replacement of the underground oil storage tank at Barlow Mountain Elementary School. The Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection does mandate that tanks that have reached the end of their useful 30-year lifespan must be removed. This tank was installed in '92, and thus in '22, we're looking at the 30-year mark. The project request is for the tank removal, for the environmental reporting and monitoring, temporary fuel delivery, so we can keep the domestic hot water and the pool heaters, the boilers for the pool heaters going during the summer months, while this project is underway. And then, of course, the installation of a new double-walled 6,000-gallon tank and all the peripheral monitoring devices that go with it. And as with all of our tank removals, this project cost does carry a small allowance for any contaminated soil. It's testing and the disposal of the contaminated soil. The next project there is the Branchville Elementary School asbestos abatement and floor retiling. And again, this is a continuation from last year, and this is actually the third year for the abatement at that school. And we're also looking at 23-24 as the final phase for asbestos abatement. And once Branchville is completed, there'll be no other schools in the district that need abatement. Okay, John, next. There we go. So the third and last project under the environmental heading is a new project to the plan. Due to I'll give you a little background, due to a water backup in the high school main office area, it was discovered, and the key word here is discovered, literally discovered, that there was an in-ground acid neutralization tank circa 1969 vintage that had failed, and the wastewater from the science labs in the original section of the high school that was backing up through the cast iron drainage lines and into the main office area. So after calling an environmental crews, an examination of the tank, it was determined that the tank should be removed and a new tank system be put in place. So the new tank system will have the monitoring devices, new monitoring devices, improved entry access, and an external clean out. You can see from the picture, it was well covered over since 1969, and the new system will be more safe for confined space entry and give us ease of access for future cleaning and the change of the media. The next group of projects address building improvement projects, and we're going to be at East Ridge for a while here. East Ridge was selected for the next LED lighting upgrade, similar to what we did at Ridgebury, Scotland, and Branchville. The project calls for the replacement of some 1,800 fixtures throughout the school and will carry an estimated Eversource incentive of approximately $92,000. Continuing with East Ridge, the school received capital funding for a 500 kilowatt generator to power the whole school. That is on order, but not included in that capital funding for the generator was the expansion of the current electrical room, and I'll explain. We did bring out GE engineers to look at the existing switch gear, the main switch gear for the school, the new transfer switch for the generator, along with the switch gear, needed to be compatible. And unfortunately, the unit combined was too big for the current room that the switchgear and transformers are housed in. So basically, this project is to create a bump out of that room in the rear of the school building that faces the ice rink by about 10 feet. And that'll get us in compliance with all of our clearances and safely accommodate the new switchgear and transfer switch. Also at East Ridge, the auditorium is slated for a complete upgrade of the house and stage lighting system. Again, this is a continuation of a project that we just completed this summer with the sound system. This is a three-year project that we're looking at. The next two projects, John, just go up to the next slide there. So the next two, there's the bump out. That shows you the location of the bump out, and it shows you the switch gear. And we just need to come out probably another 6 feet for the switch gear and then the proper clearances. John, next one. Okay. So now we're back at East Ridge, and again, we'd like to continue with the student bathroom renovations that were so successful this past summer. So we have identified another set of bathrooms in East Ridge for $52,000. And there's a picture of the boys' room and the girls' room. And also, we'd like to switch gears and head up to the elementary school of Farmingville. And again, you're looking at the very dated 1960s bathrooms, which will get a complete makeover. John, next one. So at this point, I'd like to turn the Zoom over to two of my colleagues, Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum, Corey, and Dr. Wes DeSantis, our Director of Educational Technology, who will walk you through their two projects. So Corey, it's all up to you.
Okay. Good evening, everybody, again. So during the last Board of Ed meeting, you saw a presentation from the K-12 music department. And one of the issues, or one of the big notes that we made at the end of the presentation, were around supplies for music. And when we talk about supplies and music, we're talking about instruments. And our music department was very, very excited last week to present to all of you, because it had been years and years since they had had the opportunity to showcase all of their programs. And in order for us to continue to maintain the kind of programming, the extensive programming that you saw that occurs both in school and outside of school, we do need to do a big ask when it comes to replacement of our instruments. So our team has gotten quotes and gone through every single band and orchestra across all of the buildings, and is requesting a big ask of a purchase for instruments across all those different performing groups. And I just want to remind everyone, as we spoke last time, that over 1,130 students are part of these performing groups. And one of the tricky things that occurs, especially when we're talking about elementary students, is that while they can rent violins, they can't rent and transport cellos and basses. So some of these instrument asks that you'll see are for instruments that stay at school, so that students don't have to bring them back and forth. That would be true of a timpani, that would be true of a tuba. Another reason that the ask is so big, of course, is the cost of the instruments. And I keep bringing up what I discovered, which is the cost of a tuba, which is $7,000. We want our students to have access, all of our students to have access to full bands and full orchestras. So they need access to all these different instruments that we have in our buildings. I think that's the big description of the big ask.
Yeah. All right, I'm up next. Hi, everyone, and welcome new board members. So my capital project I've been working with Joe with is just a continuation of our longer network upgrade cycle. This one that we're talking about right now would be year 4 of the big network update, which is a continuation of going through and replacing all the wireless access points throughout all the buildings, and upgrading one of our main servers at Scotts Ridge Middle School in the basement, and continuation of just updating all the network switches throughout the district. Again, it's not a complicated scenario in terms of to explain it. It's just the parts are rather expensive. I do want to say that this year has been incredibly challenging doing this year's capital project, just for the sheer fact of we went into the year finishing out COVID and doing the hybrid system of being in the school. Same with my crew, my tech crew that works on everything. And then we were met with shortages. So projects that we were going to do during the summertime, we are still waiting for parts to come in. As I've said, it's a miracle that we were able to get the new CO up to where we're doing. Now we're still working on the other project of getting the Board of Ed room so we can all be in person started. But these access points for this year throughout the schools, we're just still on back order. So my hope is when these things are able to become more available and they come in, we can move quickly through this project.
Okay. Thank you, Corey and Wes. So I'd like to talk about the last two projects that we have. The next capital request is for funding of a study to develop a much needed long-range master plan for the district. Similar to recent plans developed for Greenwich and Darien, the study will begin with a complete facilities condition survey to examine all of our buildings for mechanical, electrical, and plumbing infrastructure condition and performance. That data will work in concert with our 5-year capital plan that you have before you, and provide the framework for future infrastructure replacements and upgrades. The study will also dive into the district space capacities and current utilization of our educational spaces. And it will also tap into the enrollment data and provide a long-range forecast into the best way our buildings can be utilized and keep pace with the ongoing changes in educational delivery. And finally, the last project as part of the $2.3 million ask is a continuation of a project that we are on, it's ongoing this year, is the replacement of the antiquated cafeteria kitchen equipment. We've identified several pieces of equipment that are very high in maintenance and repair, and those need to be replaced. And that will conclude that 2-year project. And so that's it. And I'm here with my colleagues to answer any questions you have or dive into anything a little bit deeper.
Thank you, Joe. Who wants to take us out? Looking at Sean. There's his hand. All right.
Oh, Sean.
It's always me. First off, just a broad general observation. I'm hoping that we're going to use this long-range strategic plan to life cycle more stuff. I know we've already talked about life cycling the IT, which needed to happen a long time ago. I'm hoping we're going to do that with kitchen equipment, you know, those things that have a lifespan, that's lifespan and need replacement after a certain period of time, so we can have a predictable budget, and we don't have that right now.
No, and discussing with the architects, that is the main focus of that the facilities condition index, is to put a life cycle, is to get a better idea of the equipment, the age of the equipment, when is it ready to age out. You know, we did do some commissioning with COVID, upgrade some of our filter bays and some of our ventilation system, but district-wide, it's greatly needed that we're looking at some of the 1960 equipment, and we definitely need to get that on a schedule, and this is the opportunity to get that done.
Yeah, I mean, there are points in time where it costs more to maintain something than to get a new one, and we've done that more than once, chasing after bad money with good money, and we got to stop doing that. And then my only other observation is on the music program. You know, again, it's no secret that I'm a fan of our district music program. It seems like a lot of money, but if you read this closely, we haven't touched this stuff in 15 years. And the Booster Club has been supplying instruments with, you know, duct tape and spackle to keep the program together. And despite that, they're incredibly successful. So any support we can give the music program, especially after last week's very thorough presentation, I think is warranted.
Sean, if I could just speak to that. I want you to know that we are in the music department trying to mirror the work that Wes did with tech. So we are centralizing after putting together and inventorying every single instrument in our district. And we're doing the same with the pianos, though the pianos, we're not going to need more pianos. We actually have extra pianos. But after inventorying every single instrument in the district, we put together this ask, and we are centralizing a line now for replacement and making that be a systematic process over time that's equitable across all of the different bands and orchestras and schools. So it's not dependent on a school that ends up having a little bit more money than another. There is an actual replacement system. So we are trying to mirror that same approach with the music department.
Do you see that being capital going forward or operating? Because in years 2, 3, 4, 5, I don't see any more asks for that kind of music equipment on this 5-year plan. I see
So
it.
Jonathan, I think, sorry, if I can jump in, I think, oh,
Go ahead.
okay. I think that predictably, if we got this ask, we would put it on a cycle, almost in my opinion, like a textbook. And then it would be part of a cycle of replacement. It wouldn't be such a big ask at that point because some things need to be replaced sooner and other things later. So at least it would be more reasonable, but at minimum, the Board of Education can understandably know where our budget's going to be based on the things that are no longer appropriate to stay within the school.
Good. Tina. Then Amy.
I mean, I just think this is great that we're adding this. I think it's about time. And this is my PTA voice, which some days I really miss. Just saying, I know that PTAs have helped support this for so years, but it all goes back to equity that you've mentioned so many times. And I'm glad we're trying to make that across all our schools, because sometimes PTAs would step in and help. And of course, at the high school, we have this amazing Richfield Music Matters. I'm sorry, Sean, I know that's an amazing group, but it's, I have friends on that. I think it's amazing what they do. But of course, that's not possible at the at the lower level. So it's great that we're talking about this. We're adding a line item that is in the capital budget that we can continue this equity in all our schools, which is so important. And I know we say this, and we've always said that we're this arts district, we support arts, but we've never really done something concrete towards that from K to 12. And I'm glad that we're starting the process. And we see, as we continue this budget process, as we start the conversation with the Board of Finance, with the Board of Selectmen, and with the community at large, I think it's so important that we highlight that. Then when we talk about we are an arts district, it has to start from our schools, and we need that support. And so we need to build on this. And it is not something we can do in a silo. I don't think it's possible to do this in a silo. So we need to build on that collaboration. So I'm really glad we're talking this, we're starting this conversation, and we're talking about equity, because I've said it and I'll say it again, equity across all our elementaries is very important. So that when we do talk about the redistricting word, it's not taken as a bad word, because we have that there. Hopefully, if we ever do. I'm sorry, I don't want hate mail today, so please don't do that.
That's tomorrow. Amy?
As someone who's been on the Ridgefield Arts Council for the past almost 7 years, I just want to say that I agree with what Sean and Tina have both said in regards to the music ask. I have a specific question about the acid neutralization tank. I'm wondering if we have any idea how long the new tank is expected to last, which is sort of a follow-up for what Sean was asking. And I'm wondering, is there an anticipated upkeep or cleaning cost for this new? No, we're saying that we want easy access to it. And so I'm wondering, is there some sort of schedule or some sort of anticipated cost that we know will be coming?
Sure. Yeah, the new tank will last hopefully another 20, 30 years. The advances they've made in it since this one from 1969. It will be on a schedule every 2 years to be pumped out, and the filtering media will be changed every 2 years, and that will go on the operating. That'll become an operating expense that I'll bake into my high school budget there, my maintenance budget for that. And if we had known about this tank and, back buried underground there, we probably could have got into it a little bit earlier and tried to salvage some of the media, but it owes us nothing. It's done its job for the last.
Gave us 50 years.
Yes, correct.
Sean, back to you.
Just one observation. I'm guessing that 50-year tank was not rated for 50 years. What are we doing to make sure that this 20-year tank doesn't get forgotten about till bad things happen again?
I'll leave it on my separation papers.
Yeah, I'm guessing you won't be here by then. I'm just putting that out there, but
No,
like
it'll It'll be well documented. Again, it was very difficult to track it down. There was very little records from 1969, 1970 when the school opened. So going forward, this will all be documented through Moran Environmental and through my records as well.
So I'm seeing about $2.3 million worth of CIP for this upcoming year. Is that correct?
Correct.
And I'm seeing years on CIP ranging from 0 brand new to, we've seen these 11 times. Right?
For this, for the next yes. So we have the new ones, the acid neutralization tank and the bump out, and then everything else is, yeah.
And the
11 years.
music.
And the music, correct.
So just knowing how other boards tend to work, it does behoove us to send these to, when we do approve the CIP, to stack rank them, to put them in 1 through X order, because they tend to approve based on that, correct?
Correct.
So we should just keep that in mind when we do come to a vote on the CIP, that the order that we present does matter to other boards.
Absolutely.
Any other questions or comments on the CIP as presented tonight? Joe and team, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very
We will
much.
give you a hard time in 2 weeks when this comes back to us.
I expect it.
Bring a tuba with you, Corey.
Bring your
I just Googled, you can get one for $2,000.
on eBay.
Yeah, exactly. All right, moving on. We have October year-to-date financials. Do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education accept the financial report ending October 31st, 2021.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Tina? Dawn?
Good evening, everyone, and welcome new board members, and welcome back, Tina. Before you is the memorandum and the projections for our financials as they stand at the end of October. At the end of October, we are showing that we have either expended or obligated $94,269,000 of our $102 million budget, which is approximately 92.2% of our overall budgeted appropriation. My memo also explains and goes into some areas that are not encumbered at this time during these numbers, and also gives some highlights in the areas that we normally keep an eye on that could have a swing to the budget. As of now, all cost centers are going to be within budget. There's at the end of my memo, there's a summary as to some areas that could influence the budget negatively or positively. And those are the areas that we keep an eye on as well. Does anyone have any specific questions on the financials?
I do know we had some class breaks at the beginning of the year and some additional special education needs. Does that still fit in the budget as presented, or do we see a break coming forward?
The contracts for the individuals that were hired due to that class break and the special needs is part of the encumbrance that you already see in the salary lines.
Thank you.
Welcome.
And there were some energy cost increases.
We were able to lock in the electric at a rate of 0.10690 kilowatts per hour, which is a little higher than what we anticipated when we originally created the budget, as well as we locked in oil at 2.4477 per gallon, which is slightly higher than what we anticipated as well. I guess we'll have to see how the year goes and hope for a warmer winter as we go through the process, and that we could stay within budget. Obviously, as
we go through the next few months, if we start to go over budget, I'll be sure to note that in my memo as well.
Thank you. Rooting for temperate weather.
Easy winter.
Board member questions? Sean?
Yeah, it's always me. I asked during
I look at you
the,
first.
yeah, I asked during the committee meeting, and maybe we can put it here with Joe in the conference. Why is the rate for electric like 30% higher than I pay at home?
Well, I don't know what you pay at home, but we were coming off a very good contract where we were paying $1. I'm sorry, we were paying a little over 8 cents a kilowatt hour. Since then, the rates, of course, tripled. We were looking at rates because I usually watch the market every day. I get my reports from my contacts, whether it's NG or whether it's Constellation. And we were looking at 12, 13 cents a kilowatt hour. And fortunately, we did have a dip. We had a little bit of a dip there, and that's when we decided to go out to contract and get it. Hopefully next year we'll see lower prices again, but you know, we do have different have different tariffs. The different schools, we have different rate tariffs for the high schools, the larger schools, of course. So, I mean, we've enjoyed many years of good pricing as far as per kilowatt hour. This just happened to be bad timing with the market. So,
Okay, and the other question I asked during the committee meeting was, we spent a lot of time and energy putting solar panels on all these schools. What are we getting for it?
well, unfortunately, they're fixed units. When they go out with the Z-Rex and they bid on all this, they're a fixed size units, and of course, it's governed by the space that we have available on our roofs. So we're not seeing a lot of solar production on some of the schools because the systems are so small. But during the summer, Farmingville, I've had a couple months of full solar production, which has been helpful on the generation side. But of course, the T&D, the distribution side from Eversource, is what kills us.
But that's full production when the school is shut down for all intents and purposes, no?
Yeah, but we still have to pay a certain rate, depending on whatever, you know, our usage is. So I mean, we have 6 schools on solar. You know, we have Farmingville, Scotts Ridge, Barlow, and Scotland. The high school and Bridgebury, I have not gotten any billing data on that yet. We haven't seen any of the solar bills yet. But just so that you know, Farmingville, I have a lease payment, which is in the budget, to Connecticut Solar Lease. That's a fixed PPA, a purchase power agreement rate of 10 cents all in on a kilowatt hour. Their production is approximately 9,700 kilowatt hours a month. Scotts Ridge is a different company. It's Skyview Ridgefield LLC. We have a fixed PPA rate of almost a little under 6 cents a kilowatt hour all in. Now, considering the size of Scotts Ridge, that production is 10,534 on average a month. But you're looking at a school that demands 1.2 million kilowatt hours. So you can see
it's a rounding error.
What's that, John?
It's a rounding error.
What's a rounding error?
10K out of 1.2 million is a rounding error. If we flip off a couple of lights, we can save that, no?
No, we're looking at about 126 to 130,000 kilowatt hours annually.
Okay.
Against the budget of 1.2 million kilowatt hours.
Okay, so you're comparing monthly to annually. Got it.
Yeah. And the same with Barlow. I mean, so it's, you know, I'm seeing some reduction, but then when you factor in, of course, all of our COVID activities with the ventilation and everything, I don't get a true picture of the exact impact of the solar at this point anyways.
Questions, Sean? Any other questions from board members? There being none, all those in favor of approving the financial report of ending October 31, 2021, please raise your hands. That's 7-4. Motion carries. Thank you very much. And moving on to the transfers, do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education approve the transfers as presented on November 22nd, 2021.
Thank you, Rachel. Do I have a second? Tina, thank you. Dawn, you want to take us through the transfers?
We're happy to. Before you are some transfers, there are some earlier transfers in the year. July, we normally don't have transfers this early in the fiscal year, but there was some aligning that needed to be done in order to accommodate some emergency repairs that had to take place. So back in July, facilities needed to transfer some funds from projects for Ridgeberry to East Ridge Middle School, an emergency repair for the AC unit in the library and a rooftop compressor, as well as a removal of some trees in the outdoor course for the Project Adventure. In August, there was a need for the transfer of materials instruction literacy to equipment reading rooms, and they needed to be able to offer some distance seating, and they needed to purchase some seating for their reading room. They chose to move funds from one location for reading literacy materials instructional to equipment. Also in August, there was the oceanography. There was an increase in the number of enrollment. So they transferred funds of $840 from their transportation oceanography to oceanography trips. In September, home ec, Family Consumer Science, had instructional supplies and a request to move funds from the instructional supplies to the equipment. And that was to purchase stainless steel work tables, stools, for the Family Consumer Science room. Moving down the line, we have also in August, a repair of some microscopes needed to take place. So they were just slightly shy of the full cost of the repair by $100. So they took some $100 out of instructional materials to equipment repair for the science microscopes. In October, technology had a need to transfer from computer supplies district-wide to professional technical services. And that was due to an unanticipated increase in a vendor that we have that technology uses. And their athletics, which is new for this full board, due to the athletics being now under the general fund, all transfers for athletics will be coming before you. They had a transfer of purchase service video production to purchase service field hockey. And that was to rent some lights for the Scotch Ridge Middle School field hockey practice. And the reason for the lights that were needed is they were down a main field that they would use, and the practices happened to occur during the darker parts of the evening. In September, they had dance materials, both fall and winter, with a transfer to dance or purchase services winter, and that it was to cover the cost of a choreographer. And then in October, they have a request from materials football to purchase services football, and that was needed for additional funds to rent bleachers for the varsity football game, as the main field at Tiger Hall was not quite finished in time for that game.
Thank you, Don, for that detail. Sean, you want to ask a question about anything? You want to ask Wes about the 25 grand or no? You good?
To be fair,
I had an answer ready and everything.
He did at the budget meeting, and Dr. DeSantis was listening in and was able to message me the answer. So I think
Yeah, we're all square. He already answered those.
Okay.
All right, great.
but he did ask. I didn't want him to get away with not asking.
Good. Any questions from board members about these transfers? These transfers do go by board policy. So at these levels, the transfers are done in this manner. At other levels, they come to the board first for approval. But we will go into that in more detail later. Any questions about any of the transfers before us tonight? All those in favor of approving the motion to approve the transfers as presented on November 22nd, please raise your hands. 7, that's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Dawn.
Thank you.
Welcome.
And now we're going to move on to policies first read. We do not have Margaret, which is very
So,
sad. And
and-
Ken has gone for the evening. So
why don't I try to take the lead on this one, if that's
Please.
all right, Jonathan?
Please.
And so these are 3 policies. They're all a first read, and that some of them are lengthy. So we, just as a reminder, we will come back to the board for a second read and approval. The first one is actually student privacy. Operationally, we already follow this policy, but we did not have one. So this is a brand new policy suggested by Shipman and Goodwin, who is our attorney for the new board members. So this policy really reflects new federal law that the Ridgefield Board of Education will adopt in consultation with the parents, the following provisions with respect to student privacy, which is now called PPRA. Some people confuse it with FERPA. This is not FERPA, but it's the Protection of Pupil Rights Amendment. So again, operationally, we do all of this, but it does codify all of that in writing. I think what's most notable for our families is actually page 3, where it does talk about surveys that are funded by sources other than the U.S. Department of Education, in particular confidential topic surveys, which are surveys that we might actually give, let's say, as part of a health education curriculum. So what this policy requires is that we give parents notice before we administer those types of surveys. And you can see the content in which would be the possible content of which might be asked, again, developmentally appropriate for students in particular classes. The one that comes to mind might be part of a health education class. So I'll take any questions on student privacy. I know it's a lengthy policy, but that one's there.
any board questions? Again, so for new members of the board, policies come to the board for a first read and then for a second read. At the second read will be a vote. So this time is our first time to look at them, but any questions? And I do see Sean and then Rachel.
Just for clarity, this is a new policy. It didn't exist before, even though we were following it. I guess I'm confused how that works.
So it is a brand new policy. What I'm saying is that operationally, this is the way our practices have always been. There isn't anything in this policy that would require us to change what we already do, Sean, but it does operationalize it for school districts and ensure that there's a policy that follows. And some school districts may have not operationally been following those practices, but we, based on what I know in the short time that I've been here, have been operationalizing what's here.
Fair enough.
Thanks. Rachel?
Dr. De Silva, as I was reading it, I was just wondering, is there an example maybe for the non-emergency invasive physical examinations? I think the definitions on the first page are really helpful.
So I had, go ahead here. Go ahead, Rachel.
No, I'm sorry. I was just trying to think of an example of when that would occur.
A non-invasive. So I have Aaron here, who's looked over the policy. Aaron, can you think of a non-invasive physical examination?
There's really nothing that we do that would apply in this situation. No.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
I had trouble. with an example.
Yeah, it's hard for me to imagine what that would particularly be that's happening in the nurse's office, other than vision, hearing, and scoliosis screenings. We do check children's temperatures. Occasionally we use an oral thermometer, but if there was an emergency situation, we would do everything we could to support that individual's health, but there's really no invasive routine procedures whatsoever. There's students that have some medical needs that may require urinary catheterization or tracheostomy cleaning or things like that. But those are all addressed in student healthcare plans, specifically with doctor's orders, and specific training and privacy is allotted for in all of those situations. But
Thank
nothing
you.
in particular. Yeah.
Thank
Question,
you.
Rachel. Any other questions on this policy? Okay, moving on to policy on homeschooling.
Okay, so I'll turn this one over to Ms. Gillette. This is a very, very short edit. You'll notice in red. Go ahead, Corey.
Good evening again. So we did think it was important to bring this policy back up to the board since it had been over 20 years since we had looked at it as a board. We feel like this policy, which is CAVES, best represents what the current legislation is outlined by the state. The reason that we added the part in red, which we pulled off our previous policy, was just to make sure that parents are clear that they do need to file with the school, which sets up a process where they talk to the person in my seat about their plan for educating their child at home. And we as a district do offer supports, as does the state of Connecticut, for doing any kind of homeschooling. And of course, after the pandemic, there are a lot more resources for parents available who do wish to homeschool. So that was the intent of bringing this back. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Questions on this? I do not see questions for you. All right. Thank you. We can move on to bylaw 9325, meeting conduct.
So this is not a policy, but rather a bylaw of the Board of Education. And what the most significant difference here from what we had, so as you read it before our next meeting, you're going to notice that there's red highlights with yellow highlights. And really there's a piece in here that's reflective of what's happening during the pandemic. So you'll notice on pages 3 of 7, effective July 1st, 2021 until April 30th, 2022, the procedures for Board of Education members to participate by means of electronic equipment. And then you'll notice on page 4 of 7, that similarly it goes into effective July 1st, 2021 until April 30th, 2022, that the Board of Education may hold a public meeting that is accessible to the public by means of electronic equipment or by means of electronic equipment in conjunction with an in-person meeting. If the board allows for the public to participate by means of electronic equipment, it shall do so in accordance with the following procedures. And you'll see all of those that follow. So we reorganized the content that Shipman and Goodwin gave us to follow that effective July 2021 to April 2022, so that after April 2022, we could actually just remove it and leave the remainder of the bylaw in its entirety. So what's highlighted in yellow will essentially be removed after April 30th of 2022, unless something changes.
Elena?
I have comments about in-person meetings. So I was doing a little research on our Durga groups, and I noticed that they handle the public comments differently. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. And I think Westport's model is really the best, honestly. They actually allow like 15 minutes of public comment at the beginning of the meetings, and then for non-agenda items. And then throughout the meetings, I took notes. throughout the meeting, there's opportunity for public comment after each discussion topic. And I feel like that allows the parents to share their thoughts immediately rather than having to wait 2 weeks, which is more interactive. And it allows them to give their input immediately. Our current setup doesn't really do that. And then in addition, the board, it gives the board a chance to respond, which right now the board doesn't have the opportunity to do that. They just kind of sit there. And if we want to include our parents in discussion, isn't this something that we should do? Shouldn't we think about doing this? I don't know. I'm not sure why we don't do that.
You have a comment?
I agree with Selena. I've been part of this for years, and I think the biggest frustration parents feel is the fact that, yes, we want to hear from them, but when they come and speak to us, we let them speak at the end of the meeting or whenever our agenda sets it, and then we can't respond. I think the frustration, the misinformation, if any, this conjecture keeps growing because of this lack of communication. And I know we've talked about communication all the time. The more we talk, the more we communicate, it helps us understand the needs of the community, and it helps the community to have a way to talk to us. And I understand the rules that govern us, X amount means we're a quorum, we cannot make decisions, but I do understand where Selena is coming from, and being a parent and a PTA for years, and parents who reach out to me. We need to be proactive. We've gone through COVID. There are so many questions that parents feel, and I would like to hear them. Sometimes parents don't want to put their thoughts in an email. Sometimes they're not comfortable putting their thoughts in an email. I think we need to encourage communication as best as we can, as openly as we can. And the more we do that, the more we are part of the stakeholder. We keep talking about stakeholder, and I think this is our opportunity to start putting concrete steps towards it. We have a new board, we have a new administration. Let's push that. Let's push that development there. So I completely agree with what Selena said, and years have said that. I think we need to start taking more steps towards that. Communication is key, and we need to engage. We truly do, and give parents, very important, give parents an opportunity. I think that is vital. We represent our community. We represent our parents. They need to be able to talk to us.
Thank you, Tina. I see Rachel, your head, and then Selena, back to you.
I think as a recommendation, possibly during our retreat, we could talk about parent involvement and how we could involve the community more over the next year. I think that would be a great conversation to have and a good place to have it.
Good point. Selena?
I was just going to say, I'd be glad to send Westport's policy on public comment if it's helpful at all. And this can be applied to Zoom almost as easily. I've done it before in other meetings, kind of like this. So
has anybody on the call tonight ever worked in Westport? Oh, Dr. De Silva?
I have. So I think there's differences. I think Rachel brings up a good point. Selena, this particular bylaw does not connect to public comment. We have a policy, I believe, Jonathan, around public comment. So perhaps that's something that either can be discussed at the retreat or perhaps at a policy committee meeting. Once you have committee set, Jonathan, within the next week.
That's fair. Okay, we'll come back to these comments about public comment. Any other publicly stated comments about the policy in front of us, or the bylaw in front of us? Okay, points well taken on all sides there. And we can move on to items of information, starting with the enrollment report. Karen, is that going to be you?
Yeah, she got kicked off a few times. So Zoom has been not kind to anyone tonight.
No.
Karen, you ready, or do you want me to jump in?
Yeah, just can you jump in just in case? I definitely have been kicked off, but if there's questions, I can try to answer questions.
So Jonathan, we've included the enrollment report, and we also thought perhaps, during the budget season, at least, that this might be helpful to include in every board packet, if that's something that the board is interested in seeing during the budget cycle.
I think it's always useful, and this is always set as an item of information as opposed to a discussion item. The one question I did have is that the variance here is from projection to September. Is that correct?
So it starts with the projections to September, and then it's always then from month to month.
But at the end, the variance from projected column looks like it relates to September, not
Correct.
November.
Correct.
Okay. So at this point in time, we're in November, we are total RPS of 4609 versus a 4489 projection. If you're looking at 18 to 21 and outplaced, but if you're looking at PK to 12, it's 4554 actual versus a 4489, right?
Correct.
Correct.
So 65 additional students.
So
I
this
think-
is,
Go ahead.
no, I was just saying, so this is on the heels of the enrollment projections from last
Right.
board meeting, which showed the increased enrollment in our projections from last year as well.
So I think one thing that would be useful, especially as we meet with other boards, is to show a comparison, not just to projection, but also to prior year. Right, this is showing us 65 over projection,
From actual prior year?
correct?
Okay.
So
Yep.
Jonathan, on December 13th, I will be doing my prized annual class size report,
You look
which will
forward to it every year.
have, exactly. So that will have a 5-year history of projections versus actual. So maybe that will be helpful for the board as well.
Right. Any board member comments on the current enrollment report? No, we can move on to the staffing report then.
Karen, you ready?
Susie, yep, that's
I'm here. if you need me.
fine. So just nope, that's fine. Just as every month, you'll see the ins and outs of any resignations, retirements, or any new hires that have occurred during the period of time since last Board of Ed meeting. So if there's any questions about that, please let me know, but you will see that there's continually always changes throughout the school year.
So both of these reports come to us monthly. They're usually as items of information. But if anybody has questions either about the substance of these or the process, please feel free to speak up now. Thank you, Karen.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we can move on to correspondence to the board, starting with public comment.
Okay, good evening, everyone. So you will have 3 minutes for public comment this evening. As a kind reminder, please state your full name and address before going forward. First public comment, Christine.
Hi, sorry. Can you hear me and see me?
Yes.
Oh, okay, hi, thank you. Good evening. My name is Christine Moore and I live at 63 Scott Ridge Road here in Ridgefield. I'm a parent of a current ninth grader at Ridgefield High School. First, I'd like to thank Dr. De Silva and the members of the Board of Ed for all that you have done and continue to do in the face of constant scrutiny and criticism. I imagine it's not easy, and all of your efforts are greatly appreciated. Tonight, I'd like to talk to you about the importance of connection between teacher and child. When you teach a child to believe in his or herself, anything is possible. I know this. I've seen myself for the past 25 years as a public school teacher in Westchester. In order for this to happen, a strong connection of trust between teacher and student must be established. This trust only happens through human connection, and a mask covering one's face is an obstacle that greatly affects this connection. Much has been discussed about how wearing masks helps to mitigate the transmission of COVID-19, but not enough weight is being placed on the negative effects mask wearing has on our children and their ability to connect with their teacher and each other. The ability to see a smile from your teacher or a reassuring look is incredibly powerful for a child. Nonverbal communication is an essential part of language in all facets of education. How can a teacher know how a child is really feeling without being able to see his entire face? Teachers become experts at this when we've connected with our kids. I can't stress this enough. And this trusting connection between teacher and student is the foundation upon which all learning is built. Without that foundation, learning is negatively affected. Our kids deserve better. The emotional well-being of our children is paramount now more than ever. Our kids have been through so much over the past 18 months, and they're very resilient. But it's our job as parents, teachers, administrators, and trusted adults in their lives to do what's best for them. I recognize that our governor has mandated masks in all schools in Connecticut, but it's time to push back on this. In my opinion, we should be doing everything in our power to get masks off of our children in school. Everything. COVID cases are down. Much of our community is vaccinated. Data shows that this virus poses little to no threat to our healthy children. Why should we wait for a politician to tell us what's right for our kids? It's time to stand up and make a decision that may be unpopular through a political lens, but one that has our children's best interests in mind. Teaching the whole child has been my passion throughout my entire career, and I can tell you that when a teacher connects with a child, magic happens. Please remove the masks and watch the magic happen. We owe that to our children. Thank you for your time, and I wish you all a happy, healthy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Christine. So Jonathan, can I just jump in? I know that one of our committee meetings, we talked about having a timer, and Christine, you were very patient. That timer was very large. I don't know.
I was so nervous. Thank you.
So Christine, you did amazing. And the fact that you didn't get distracted by that, because I was, so we'll find a better, I think we talked in one of our committees that a visual would be helpful for the speaker, but I don't think magnified is helpful. So we're going to work on that. Jonathan, with your permission, we can maybe just skip the timer until we can find a smaller one.
I can set my timer on my phone, and a little duck will sound when 3 minutes is up.
All right. I'm sorry about that, Christine. You were amazing with that.
No, thank you so much. I appreciate the time and consideration.
Thank you.
I apologize. I didn't realize it was going to be that large.
Okay. Next public comment is Beth.
Hi, Dr. De Silva. Can you hear me?
We can, Beth. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Beth Ingram. I live at 227 Bennett's Farm Road. I have twins that are in second grade at Ridgebury Elementary School. I'm on the call. I'm actually doing the minutes, but I thought I would go ahead and ask a question. There's been a concern among Ridgebury parents about the ticks on campus, and I know that I had sent you an email, Dr. De Silva, about the tick issue, but there seems to be an issue between the town and they don't seem to think, when I was talking to Parks and Rec, that that spraying for ticks is something that the town can do. And I was under the impression that the school district had partnered with the town. So I just wanted to become more aware of what was going on there. I know that there was a tick sheet drag that was done, and they collected for ticks to be ID'd and tested. And there were a couple of deer ticks. The majority were brown dog ticks, but there were still some deer ticks. And this is a big concern among parents because students are picking ticks off each other. And yeah, I just wanted to ask that question. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Silva, you can respond in offline at some point.
So if it's okay with you, Beth, so we will, myself and or Joe will circle back, and what you're describing is, I think, accurate to what's done thus far. So we'll circle back with you either by phone or by email tomorrow.
Thank you.
Next public comment is Julia.
Hi, can you all hear me?
Yes.
We can.
Hi everyone. Okay, so my name's Julia London. I have two students in the Ridgefield Public Schools. One is in 6th grade at East Ridge, and the other one is at Farmingville in the 4th grade. I'm not gonna say my address. I think everybody here knows how to reach me. I don't know why you guys need the address, but I did want to speak to you about the mobile vaccination units. A lot of this has already been covered, so it'll be redundant, but you know, it does look like this issue has already been decided. We already got an email saying a date for these vaccination clinics. So I'm not sure at all whether, in fact, this is a topic for open discussion, but it really should be, because I don't think I think there are many parents out there who do not understand the necessity for this at all. You can take your child to any local drugstore for free, to your child's pediatrician, and get the vaccine. So what exactly is the purpose of this? It's not as though we live in a remote rural community where there's been no outreach about the vaccine. Every parent in Ridgefield is totally aware of this vaccine. They're posting on Facebook on a regular basis, you know, pictures of their kids being vaccinated. So I just don't understand what the urgency is. It seems like the cons clearly outweigh the benefits of this. When you think about the liability issues that can arise, you know, there are many practical concerns. Who's administering this? What is the proper dosage? I think pediatricians diverge in their opinions on what the proper dosage is, depending on, you know, the size of the child. Which vaccine? I guess parents will be present, so that's not an issue. But if parents are going to be present, then why not just have parents bring their kids to a drugstore or to you know, any health clinic or pediatrician. You know, the issue of obtaining informed consent is there. I know, I'm very happy to hear at least that this is not going to be happening during school hours, but that leads me to the question of how is this going to be advertised in schools? And what about kids with phobias? What about peer pressure? They just don't need this stress at school. Schools are in the business of educating our children. These are not health facilities. You know, even the consideration of what about a testing unit instead of a vax unit? You know, I just think that there are so many questions here. I don't think it's appropriate to be doing this. And I am not an alarmist. I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I'm speaking from the perspective of someone who's had the vaccine herself. And, you know, I became very, very sick with the second shot. And I'm a person actually who gets a flu vaccine every year. So this is, I'm not speaking from the perspective of an anti-vaxxer here at all. But I really have never been as sick as I was after getting the second shot of this particular vaccine. And that experience alone is, of course, giving me pause about putting my kids through that. My kids who are between the ages of 5 and 11, when they have almost zero risk of becoming seriously ill from COVID. And so I just think that schools really need to remove themselves from the business of advocating for this vaccine. And that's what this is. You know,
I have to ask you to wrap up.
yeah, sure. On a personal level, you know, even there are heart issues with the men in my family. I have 2 sons, and myocarditis is an actual concern for me. Again, I'm not an alarmist. These kids have gone through enough already. It's time to move on. Why do we have to constantly throw COVID back in their faces? And schools should be places of learning. They're not health facilities. They should be focused on the work of getting our kids educated, especially after having missed significant amounts of school last year.
Thank you.
Let me just say, I have 2 more seconds to go, okay? I know Ridgefield did relatively well in terms of keeping kids in school, but I've heard kids are 18 months behind in learning. There's simply no time for this distraction when any parent can take their kid to the local drugstore or to their doctor and get the vaccine in a more private setting, should they choose to do so. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rachel?
Okay, so we have no more public comment this evening. I'm going to
Okay.
move on to our correspondence report. We have received 27 emails since our last Board of Education meeting. 2 emails regarding first view bus tracking. 2 emails provided a recommendation for board chair and secretary. 16 emails provided a recommendation for board chair. 3 emails regarded the mobile vaccination site. 1 email was operational in nature, and 3 emails regarded NSBA and DOJ. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. And with that, we have come to the bottom of our agenda. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Rachel, thank you. Do I have a second? Sean, thank you. All those in favor of adjourning, please raise your hands. That's everyone. Thank you all very much. Again, welcome aboard to the new people, and we will see you again in 2 weeks.
Happy
Good night, everyone.
Thanksgiving.
Happy